Hello and welcome in. This is Mark, aka the Markster. This is video number 12 in the FreeCAD series. Let me go ahead and show you which version I'm using today. Today we'll be making this pencil or one similar to it. We'll be demonstrating using this 2D offset tool and also working with the colors. Something frankly I have not really done much of. Let's go ahead and close this. Create a new document. Let's use our macro we showed in the last video. If you haven't seen that one, I would encourage you to go back and watch it. Really, you should be watching these videos in order. They're designed to be watched in sequence. So our pencil will have a length and a radius. I want to move that one up here. And we can copy these and run our easy alias macro. That's much easier than digging through the menu, the macros menu. So again, if you haven't watched the previous video, number 11, go back and watch that one. We can create a cylinder. This will represent the pencil, the wood part of the pencil, the part that gets exposed when you sharpen it. F2 to rename, and we'll call this wood. ss.ss, we'll set the radius, and we'll set the length. What happened here? Failed to convert to quantity. Oh, I didn't add the radius yet. I always forget that, don't I? Let's call this 80 and this one 3. Now let me clear this. So if we get another error, it'll catch our attention. Go ahead and save our document. We'll call it pencil. I had an earlier one. I'm going to go ahead and replace that one. And now we'll set the height. You can press the equals key. ss.ss. Bring up our list. And this will be the length. Alright. Now let's go ahead and set a color. We'll come down here to the View tab. I'm only interested in the shape color. I've already added some custom colors. This is a brown. Probably should have a little lighter color there. Update that one. Let's use that color. That would be in the HTML EFD4AF. You could enter that here if you want that color. If you want a different one, feel free. Alright, now the next thing, we'll add a cone. The cone will be the sharpened part of the wood, and we'll add another cone that will represent the pencil lead. So let's go ahead and set this color also to the wood color. and we can map this cone to this circle on the edge. Let's flip sides. There we are. And okay. And radius 1, let's make that the same as the wood. SS.ss radius. F5 to recompute. So that looks pretty good on that end. Now how long should this piece be? Let's make it in relation to the overall length. So the length divided by 10, you think that would look good? I think that would be about right, huh? And that way, if we resize the length and the radius, it'll be a little bit more proportional. It'll remain in that same proportion. So what should be this radius? Should we add a new variable? Let's call this lid radius. So it'll be the same as the lid, and that'll be divided by 2. So half of this radius. I'm just kind of winging this here. Let's see now. Let's call this F2 here. Let's call this the wood cone. Press the equals key, ss.ss wood lid radius. F5. How does that look? Let's bring in another cone. This one will be our lid cone. It's not really lead anymore, it's some sort of graphite. You can use lead to write with, I've done it. Not recommended. Alright, let's map this one now to this circle. And that looks good. Okay. Good thing about mapping is it's always going to follow when this gets moved. We don't have to fuse these together, they'll stay connected. Alright, now let's choose a color for the lid. It needs to be a little darker. I have this one, what do you think? It's probably a little too light. Slide this down, that looks more like it. So that's 4B, 4B, 4B. Click add to custom colors to replace that one. And OK. F5. So radius 1 is going to be that lid radius. And radius 2. Should we just make that, let's make it a percentage of the lid radius divided by 4 maybe. Let's see what that looks like. F5. Might have to play with this a little bit to get the right ratios. And the height. Let's make that a proportion of the length also. The other was divided by 10, so this will be divided by 20. Let's see what that looks like. 5. Let's lower. Divided by 2.2. Let's see what that does. Press enter. That looks okay to me. Alright. Now, we need to apply something that's going to give us a hexagon profile here, and also paint this yellow like a pencil. So let's use this tool here to create a polygon, 6-sided polygon. Close that. And let's map our polygon to this end. Okay, that looks good. And let's make our polygon radius this same radius. Let's see what that looks like. F5 to recompute. Zoom in a little bit. I think that's going to do nicely. What we'll do is we'll cut these sections out by extruding. We'll extrude this on down this direction. But in order to do that, we need an outer portion. That's where the 2D offset tool is going to come in. So we'll create an outer portion that matches the inner portion. Now we have the arc mode. Let's try the intersect mode. It doesn't really matter because all this is cutting away anyway. And we want to fill this offset. So now we'll have a cutting tool we can make by extruding this downwards. Let's choose our radius times 2 just to make sure it's plenty big enough. Too big is not a problem. Type mismatch. Add millimeters to it. Let's see if that helps. Yeah. Okay. So we see that error there. Invalid type long from the spreadsheet is just a number. It's not a unit quantity. So it couldn't match up with the value that was expected. It wanted something in millimeters or some unit length is what this offset tool was expecting. So by adding millimeters to here, we're able to get it to accept our value. It's good that we have these mistakes in the video so we can show how to overcome them. So I like the way that looks. Let's set the color here to this yellow. Let's say it looks pretty good, huh? Maybe this one's better. Yeah, I like that one better. I like that one. Let's see if we can add that. So that's FFFFOO. All red and green, no blue. Yeah, that's gonna be nice and bright, I think. Alright, now let's go ahead and see if we can get this to extrude. Switch back to the data tab. We'll see if it can find the normal automatically on this or not. Yes, it did work. It's going in the wrong direction, but that's not a problem. We undo it. We click the reverse here. Let's create a solid so we can cut it. And then I think we can just apply and close. So that's looking good. Of course, it's not going far enough yet. The default is 10. But we know the length of this cylinder, and we can just multiply that by some value. I'll just say times 2. It'll be way longer than needed, but that's okay. F5 to recompute. You can see extended pretty far past what was needed, but going further is fine. Sometimes if you have exactly the right length, like right here where these are coplanar edges, sometimes that can cause problems. So now let's cut that wood section, and we also need to cut the cone. Should we cut them separately? Let's fuse them together and see what happens there. Yeah. And now we'll cut it. The fusion is the base. Extrude is the cutting tool. So we select it second, holding down the control key to do a multiple selection. And we'll choose the cutting tool. And look at the nice little effect here. It looks like you've sharpened your pencil. Now, of course, in a real pencil, you have the little bit of lead showing here. I'm not going to worry about that because I'm going to put an eraser on this end. This ratio leaves a little bit to be desired, but I think I'll just leave it at that. So now we need to put our eraser on. There's always this little ferrule on the end, they call it. So we'll use a cylinder for that. And we'll map it to, let's map it to this other cylinder since it's round. It'd be a nice thing to map to. Let me select this cylinder. And this is going to be our ferrule. Let me go ahead and name that F2. I believe that's the correct spelling. And click the map mode for the attachment type. Click these 3 dots that show up. This opens our attachment task. And as a reference, we'll choose the circle. And that lines it up concentrically by default. So now this cylinder is concentric with this cylinder. This looks like a pretty good color already, so I'll leave that as is. And what radius do we want? Let's see, equals ss.ss. Let's try this radius. F5. We can hide this wood cylinder now. Let's have a look here. That looks okay to me. Let's set the length to something proportional. What about length divided by 10? What will that look like? That looks good, huh? Could be a bit longer maybe. I think that's acceptable. Now let's add our eraser, which will be another cylinder. F2, eraser. It's often useful to give these objects labels, especially where you have more than one of the same type. Especially if you open this model up 6 months from now. So we need a eraser color. How about this red here? What say ye on that? A little more green maybe? That's looking pretty good. So let's add that to the custom color. And that's FF607F if you're playing along at home. Now let's go to our data tab again. And we need to map this one. Should we map to the other cylinder again or this cylinder? Let's map to this edge. And concentric is fine. So let's set our radius. ss.ss. What do we want? The radius? We don't want the same radius. How about times 0.9 maybe? Let's see what that looks like. F5. That looks pretty good to me. I like that. Alright. Now the length, let's make it 10 looks good for this ratio. Equals ss.ss length times 10/8. That'll keep it at 10. I did something wrong. Let me see. Yeah, way wrong. That's way too long of an eraser. You're gonna break that the first time you try to use it. Let's see what I did wrong here. That should work. 10/8. 10/80. Oh, let's see what that does. Yeah, that looks better. F5. Now let's see if we change our length to 200, if it's going to break our model or what's going to happen. Yeah, it looks kind of funky, huh? Of course, we need to change our radius too to make that to make it more in the correct ratio. Oh yeah, that's a fat stubby pencil. That's the kind like the Three Stooges would pull out of their pocket. You ever watch the Three Stooges? Great big pencil. Mo would take it away from him. I think it was curly, and he'd keep pulling another one out, bigger and bigger each time. All right. We could add some kind of dressing to this to make it look like it was pressed on. You think it's worth the trouble? Or we could just leave it like that. What should we use to do that with? I'm thinking we could make maybe an array of toruses and cut them out of it. Array of small cylinders. And just leave it like that. Let's use our tube. How about that? We haven't used Mr. Tube lately. Well, that one cannot be mapped is the only problem with it. Where you at, Mr. Tube? Let's make you bigger. Oh, it's the inner radius. There you are. Move him in this direction. And we'll move it by the length of the what's that gonna put it at? Enter for OK. Yeah, that's about where we'll want it, isn't it? How do you know what I'm even thinking? Okay. And we'll make this height 0.5. The inner radius will be the radius. Let's see what that does. F5. Looking at it from the top. I want to cut into it a little bit. I haven't tried this yet, so that's why I'm a little bit confused about what I'm doing. Position here. Let's move it up. This is making us a little less parametric than I would like, actually. Just by 1. F5. Now what if we cut that out of there, out of the ferrule, with a cut, just to experiment with this. Well, that makes a little indentation. Let's undo that cut. Go over to the draft workbench and create an array. This one here. And now selecting the array. We'll choose ortho. We want them in the Z direction. We want one of each of these in the X and Y directions. Let's see, what about 8 of these? 1 millimeter apart. This is running our parametricity, by the way. Alright, having too many might actually not be a problem. Let's say fuse to true. There's too many, will just extrude past it. Alright, now let's try cutting that array from the ferrule back to part. I'm not real artistic, in case you didn't notice. Okay, let's call that good enough. Maybe a little more separation. .5. Alright. So we're already past 30 minutes, but I do want to show you how to draw text into here. And we can do that in the draft workbench with a tool called a shapestring. But I want this lined up straight first. Okay. Let's go to the draft workbench. You haven't tried this yet. I know there was an issue creating shape strings with the pre-release 0.19 version. Hopefully that's been solved. Now you have to choose a font. You notice I clicked the shape string tool here. So you have to select a font from your system. I have a folder, e-downloads fonts, and I think we want something like a Courier. Search on the web for open font types, free downloads, free type fonts, true type fonts. You can find them on your own system. In Windows, it's in the folder C, Windows Fonts, I believe. But it's probably a hidden folder. Let's see, this is Courier. Reset the point, I just want it at the origin for now. I can move that later. And the string I want is number 1. Let's say OK. And see what we've got here. That looks pretty good, except it's in the wrong position. wonder if we can map it to this face. Mapping the faces can be problematic because of the way FreeCAD works. It's going to be mapped to face number 7. But if you do something additionally to this object, if you go back up the history tree, and suddenly now it has 8 faces, this object is going to move to that new face, which might be problematic depending on your model. You can always just go back and remap it. I wonder if this is a good size. We'll see. I want to rotate this 90 degrees. And this would be around the x-axis, I believe. Nope, not the x-axis. Wrong axis. Y-axis. Z-axis. Alright, that's not the correct axis, but I guess they're treating this like a sketch, kind of. When you're changing the attachment of a sketch, Z is always directly above that sketch, regardless of the regardless of your view of what axis it actually is. That looks a little bit too big, but that's okay. We'll change that. F5 to recompute. And the size here of 10 millimeters, let's scroll that down to 8. That looks like it might work. We need to adjust our attachment offset property. Once you have something attached, you do not change the attachment, the placement property anymore. You change the attachment offset property, and the placement will automatically update itself. It's actually kind of a read-only thing right now. You see, I can't even click on it. Can't change these because you have to change the offset. So I would like to move this. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And normally I think it's down here somewhere, huh? Let's go to the part workbench, and we will extrude this shape string just a little bit, 0.5, symmetric, apply, and close. I would like this to be a black color. So we'll change that color to black. Okay. And we'll cut this out. Of this cut object here. We'll select that one first, then the extrude, and then cut, or we could fuse it and create an embossed thing. Let's try that, fuse it instead. And now, if you look carefully, there's a little bit of an embossed look to it. Cutting it out would work too. We can fuse our pencil together into one object and check the geometry. It's taking a while. It's not a good sign. Should have saved the file before starting this. Oh, look, it crashed. This is my Twitter account. Alright, and that's my security camera. Let's recover this file and hopefully we haven't lost everything. Quite a lot though. Well, I think the old mantra of save and save often, do as I say, not as I do. But luckily, at least we auto-saved this much. We can cut the array from there. I think that's the next step, it looks like, from where we were. I had changed, I think I had changed the interval maybe. Yeah. What have we gone to? 2? Was it 2 or 1.5? Must have been 1.5. And we added a shape string. I'm not going to do that again. For this demonstration, the video is already too long. So we're going to call that a day. Let that be a lesson, a life lesson here, FreeCAD life lesson. Save and save often, especially before you do is check geometry. And most likely what happened at shape string caused the problem and just caused it to crash. But I think everything's going to be okay with that model. So that's going to be it for today. I thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.